Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and now that my two obligatory informative videos are done for the day, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And you know what? A lot of stuff has come out in the last couple weeks about Cassidy Campbell being a fake natty. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. And you know, there's been a lot of discussion on it. Some people are saying, wait a minute, how's this guy a fake natty? And other people are like, okay, I can see it. But yeah, a lot of people are like, how is that guy on gear? I thought you said people gain muscle on gear even if they don't even train. Well, they do, and he did gain muscle. What people need to understand is that they have this idea in their head that the average gear user looks like Simeon Panda or Mike Rashid. Okay, they see these fake natties and they're thinking, oh, okay, so most people who go use a bit of stuff are going to look like them, right? If that was the case, half the dudes in your gym would look like them. Or you go to the UK, they did a survey in the UK among young men, and they found that young men who had gym memberships who actively worked out, 1 in 3 were users. Walk into any British gym and look around the room and tell me that you think 1 in 3 guys look like Simeon Panda. Look in Simeon Panda's gym in the UK and tell me that a third of the guys look like him in there. They clearly don't, right? Well, most guys who go on stuff in studies who don't train or who train marginally gain a good 15 pounds of muscle. That's pretty normal. That's average. That happens even if they don't train. You guys don't think Cassidy's gained 15 pounds of muscle? Sure he has. But look where he started. Look back before Cassidy pulled that stunt where he showed up at my gym. Look how tiny and weak and frail he was before that. A lot of people joked and said, you know, he didn't look like he lifted and stuff. He looked like he lifted a little bit. He did look like he lifted a little bit. But the point is, he barely looked like he lifted. He hadn't gained very much muscle mass. Very, very little. A little bit. But he had not even finished out his new gains. And all of a sudden, he gets a big burst in strength. His incline bench and his pressing goes up. Okay? Pressing strength is a big deal. We know that this stuff is most affected by that. But then people are like, well, he gained some muscle. He looked like he bulked a bit. But he doesn't look like these guys. Well, of course not. Of course he doesn't. And that's kind of the ironic thing, is that you have someone like Cassidy who is in the game of calling out fake natties for the mints, for trolling, for whatever reason. And it turns out he himself is a fake natty too. But here's the thing you have to remember. There's different reasons people call out fake natties. Now, why do I call out fake natties? Because they're conning people and ripping them off. You know what? If someone tells me, well, why don't you ever talk about this person? They're clearly a fake natty, and I go look and they're not selling anything. Why do I care? I don't care if a person uses stuff and says they don't. That doesn't affect anybody. As long as they aren't putting out training programs saying this is how I got here, or they're selling you products or workouts or whatever, that's the problem. That's when it hurts people. All right, their lie doesn't hurt anybody until it starts influencing people to either try a really stupid training program, to buy a training program, to buy supplements, to waste their money when they've been deceived with a fraudulent advertising method. All right, that's the problem. No one should care, because why are you guys going to admit it? Lots of guys use stuff. They don't want to admit it. It's illegal for most of them to live. Why are they going to admit they're doing something illegal? Of course not. In fact, it's borderline stupid. Again, look what happened to Musclehead. And it's why guys like Boston, these people really shouldn't be doing what they're doing. I'll give them props, guys like Boston, for being honest with what he's doing. But he probably shouldn't do. He's going to get himself in trouble. He's admitting to committing multiple felonies. Probably not a good idea. As a public figure, to publicly admit to committing multiple felonies across the internet to audiences of hundreds of thousands of people is probably not a good idea. So in that context, you can see why a lot of people would be like, no, man, I'm natty. You know, you're not going to knock them for that aspect of it. It's a problem when they're using it to sell products. But the problem we've got is, again, people have these ideas, and they don't realize Cassidy represents the average gear user. A guy who doesn't have the genetics to look really good right off the bat. Because I'm going to tell you right now, all these guys you're thinking of who everyone says argues about if they're natty or not, who are fake natties, who have these fantastic physiques by bodybuilding standards, whatever standards you guys use for that. You know, it honestly is a very arbitrary thing. It's current trends right now is what people would consider in the online fitness world to be a great physique, and it's not the same as what the average person sees or what other eras have seen. A lot of these guys, even in previous bodybuilding eras, would have been penalized for being too ripped. Just throwing that out there. That used to be penalized in bodybuilding. They didn't like it. Didn't have classic aesthetics to be too ripped. Okay? But you need to understand, most of these guys probably looked reasonably aesthetic and reasonably muscular when they first started out. Okay? You go look around the gym, we all know people, 1 in 10 guys out there, they start lifting, they look pretty good within a few months, don't they? About 1 in 10 guys actually start looking fantastic. They get lean, they get big, they grow quick, they seem to lose fat and get leaner while they grow. They've got genetics for body composition. They have genetics for aesthetics and bone structure. Okay, they have a balanced structure, usually very wide shoulders. They have long muscle insertions. These people are going to look better than other people. So you take these people who are above average genetically, in the top 10% or so, they go on a bunch of gear. They're going to look better than other people who use gear. They looked better than the people before they used gear. If you both go use, 2 guys both go use stuff and one of them looks quite a bit better than the other naturally, even with the same training time, than the other one, and they both use stuff, the guy who looked better before is still going to look better. Okay, that's how this works, guys. In case people weren't aware, genetics matter. When it comes to bodybuilding or anything aesthetics related with physique, genetics matter. In fact, I'll go so far as to say genetics are probably the most important factor. And if you can't accept that, then you're in for a dose of harsh reality getting into this game. All right? That's reality. They matter. They're the biggest factor. And what happens, a lot of these substances bring out, amplify what's already there to a very massive extent. Now, the other thing is, people are like, why didn't he gain more? Why wasn't he that big? Well, people are saying he was using up to 700 milligrams of this or that. Do you really think that's how little some of these fake natties use? Like, I'm going to ask you guys a serious question. Do you guys think Simeon Panda uses like 700 milligrams of tren a week and that's the entirety of what he uses? Do you really think that? You really think he's that size and holds that much muscle mass at that level of leanness with that mild of a stack? Yeah, people say, well, that's a lot. You get a lot of side effects from that. That could hurt your health to be on that. That actual substance of that amount could harm your health. Yes, it could. That's not enough to look like that. Even for the genetically gifted guy like Simeon, he's not going to look like that if that's all he's using. You guys are deluded as far as what people are actually using out there. You need to understand, from the toxicology we got from Dallas McCarver, he was on 10,000 milligrams of test. That's based on his toxicology. And we know he used tren and growth hormone and insulin. Okay? 10,000. Jerry Ward. Look at what Jerry Ward's stack he sent to me. He argued about it, admitted he was using all that gear, just he argued about the dose of the IGF-1. Look at how Jerry looked at that time. Jerry looked pretty reasonable. He placed last at his next bodybuilding show. He was on 2 grams of 3 different substances combined together to come up with 2,000 milligrams. Okay, 700 versus 2,000 plus HGH plus IGF-1 on top of it. All right, he wasn't that big. He wasn't that big and he wasn't that ripped. Jerry isn't as genetically gifted as some of these guys, and that's what it took for him to be where he was. All right, and that's after decades of training and using stuff continually. See the point there? You take someone like Cassidy, when you saw him before, he isn't genetically gifted. As far as bodybuilding is concerned, and this is not a knock at a person because nobody has the same genetics for everything. People have different gifts in life. That is not one of his gifts. He's below average in that regard. Do you guys really think that a guy who has below average bodybuilding genetics, who has no base built, no work ethic, probably doesn't really know how to train, goes on a little bit of stuff, do you think they're going to come out looking like a bodybuilder in 6 months? Of course not. He represents the average gear user. You'd be surprised. Yeah, you can spot the side effects. And again, if you look at him, he had the face bloat, he had the rapid change in pressing strength. All right, he had all the character. He had characteristics. It's pretty obvious. Even his mentality. For example, the guy thought he was going to, the same time his strength went up, he all of a sudden decided he was going to come confront me on camera and broke into a gym, trespassed in a gym with a camera like he was going to confront me and everything else, and actually thought that that would be a good idea to do to me when I was on high alert, was dealing with stalkers, had already told people I'd had to go to the FBI about my stalkers, had been in the FBI building, all this stuff, and that actually all did happen. Shortly before he did that he thought that that would be a good idea to just jump out at me and confront me with a camera. I mean, again, a level of judgment. These things cloud your judgment. They cloud your judgment. So again, clouded judgment. He had the face bloat. He gained a little bit of muscle. His pressing strength shot up over a year's worth of pressing strength gains. Probably what would take a lot of guys up to 2 years to do, he did in a few months. As far as pressing strength goes, it was kind of obvious what was happening. But there's the thing. Cassidy is the average guy in the gym who uses a little bit of stuff. That is the average gear user. Okay, that's the average gear user. And I think that's the reason, one of the reasons he does have kind of a hard-on for the fake Natty thing himself is because I think it bothers him because he has used stuff. He maybe thought because of the fake Natty thing that maybe if he just did the stuff he would look like these guys do, and then he got a harsh dose of reality that it didn't turn out that way. So I think he started going harder after the Simian Panda guys and confronted Simian on camera, jokes and stuff at an expo and everything. And I think that's really what it is for him. I think it realized and hit home for him that these guys are lying on so many levels that they're not just using a little bit of stuff. These guys are mega users. They're mega abusers. And they're genetically gifted, because here's the reality. If you want to look like a guy who's genetically gifted aesthetically, who's on a lot of gear, you have to be a guy who's genetically gifted aesthetically on a lot of gear. You can't fake that other than Photoshop. But not walking around at an expo. You're going to have to be a genetically gifted guy who uses a fair amount of stuff. And that's just the reality of it. And that's the difference you need to understand. People have these standards set of what they think someone should look like who uses anything, even a little bit, based upon these guys who are genetically gifted, who are using a lot of stuff while claiming Natty. All right, and it creates this image of people think that is what a gear user looks like. No, that's what a gear abuser looks like, who is very genetically gifted aesthetically. Big difference. The overwhelming majority of guys out there who are blasting gear, gym rats are using it, 95% of them are never going to look like Mike Rashid. They are never going to look like Simian Panda. Hell, most of them are never going to look like Jeff Side. All right, that's reality. They don't have the genetics for it. And they probably don't even use the same amount and quality of stuff that these guys use either on top of it. So back to the point, when you look at Cassidy, that is your average gear user. I've been in this game a real long time, and I've met hundreds of people in my life who use anabolics. 50% of them look like Cassidy. That's just the reality. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.